Good afternoon, everybody. It is the 31st of January 2023. 3 years ago today, on the 31st of January 2020, the United Kingdom left the European Union officially, and there were lots of celebrations about Brexit has been done. Well, Brexit was a word that was invented in around 2016. Before then, everyone just said it was either leaving the European Union or staying in the European Union. That's what all the campaigns were about up to 2016. But this word Brexit was invented. And with that came the idea of we're not just leaving in full and completely forever, job done. But there would be different kinds of Brexit. There would be a hard Brexit, a soft Brexit, a Norwegian Brexit, a Swiss Brexit, any other kind of Brexit you can think of, which wasn't really the idea. So there were different treaties and proposals mooted in the time between the referendum and the date when we left and the date when we actually finished the so-called 11-month transition period, which actually only ended at the end of 2020. So it took 3.5 years from the referendum to us officially leaving. Then there was another year, 4.5 years until we actually, the conditions in the treaty for us leaving were actually implemented. Because what happened 3 years ago is that everyone was celebrating, oh, Brexit's happened, but nothing really actually happened. All of the regulations and the directives and rulings still applied. The only thing that actually happened is that we left the European Parliament, our representative left the European Commission, so we didn't have a European Commissioner anymore, and we didn't go to the Council of Europe, which is the heads of state all get together in Brussels or Strasbourg regularly to discuss things together. So we left those bodies, but we were still obliged to obey all of the European laws for another 11 months until the end of 2020. So we didn't actually really leave properly until the end of 2020. But then we didn't leave properly either, because the so-called deal that fake Conservative Boris Johnson signed was so terrible that we didn't really get Brexit at all. We got some things. So we can still carry on trading, zero tariff trade with the EU as before, which was, sensible because, that's in the EU's best interest. It's in the UK's best interest. It's mutually beneficial to do that. Even if we'd left with no deal, they would have come round to that position eventually, unless they actually wanted to create chaos, which some of them do actually, but there you go. What's the point of actually having a relationship with people that want to create chaos? Just walk away and do something different. But that's beside the point. The thing is, there's 3 absolutely odious things in the treaty or agreement. It's called the TCA, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, which the fake Conservative Boris Johnson signed on behalf of the United Kingdom with the European Union. And the first one is the Northern Ireland Protocol, which splits our country in 2. Who would agree to this, that a foreign power can still apply their law in a section of your country? How? Nobody in their right mind would make any agreement with anyone to say, a bit of your country is effectively not under our laws, but under your laws, unless you've lost a war, in which, that's the only time anyone would make a treaty or an agreement that is so terrible. But that is what's happened. Northern Ireland, a part of our country, is now subject to dynamic, what do they call it? Dynamic equivalence, that's it. They have to not just keep all of the European laws and regulations over trade in goods and services that they had in 2020, but they have to apply all of the new ones they make. So legally, in law, Northern Ireland is diverging from the rest of the United Kingdom, and as time goes on, it will diverge further. And then someone will come along and say, well, Northern Ireland's effectively part of the EU. Why doesn't it just become part of the EU? And that is what globalists actually want. This is a ruse to split up the Union, to split up our nation and take Northern Ireland out of the United Kingdom, marry it to the Republic of Ireland, whether the people there want it or not, and they don't, without them having any choice or say. This is how the globalists think. They think they can just do whatever they like, whether local people want it or not. And even if we have democracy, they try to find ways to circumvent and subvert our democracy and do things which people never voted for. And this is one of those things. The fake conservatives signed this contract with the EU that effectively gives up Northern Ireland. What we need to do, there's two things which we could easily do. The first one is they could trigger Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Protocol anytime they want. They've been talking about it for 2 years. Oh, we'll do it, we won't do it, we'll do it, we won't do it. You know they're never going to do it. The fake conservatives are never going to do that. They're just going to pretend, oh, maybe we'll do it sometime. But of course they're not going to do it, because that's not what they want. They're globalists, and half of them want to go back into the EU anyway. Either, first of all, join a single market again, which would mean that the whole of the Great Britain, as well as Northern Ireland, is subject to EU laws and rules and regulations to do with the single market and the customs union. And some of them just want that to be a stepping stone as to go back fully into the EU as well. So that's one thing we could do to get out of that situation without even, we're still staying in the TCA. I'll come on to the second thing later. The second thing, and the reason why the TCA, the agreement, treaty, whatever you like to call it, is so bad is because we're still effectively in the common fisheries policies. And our fisheries, our fishermen were totally sold out by fake conservative Boris Johnson all the way through for a decade or more. Our fishermen, our fishing industries, our coastal towns were promised we would get back full control of all of our fishing waters, our 200-mile exclusive economic zone. And when it came to it, he just signed a clause without even reading it properly that said there'll be joint management of our fishing stocks, and there will be we'll have to make an agreement with the EU every single year to maybe take a little bit back of our fishing stocks with the full agreement of the European Union, which is not the point at all. What we should have done is say, we're out of it. Whatever's in our waters is ours, and you don't have any say over what British fishermen do in British waters at all. We're taking back control of our land and our sea. That's what should have happened, but it didn't happen, and they agreed this dreadful kind of, essentially giving away our fishing waters to joint control, which essentially means the EU says what happens until at least 2026. And then they will consider what happens after then, but probably sort of keep the same thing going. Dreadful, absolutely dreadful that they sold out our fishing towns and our fishing coastal towns. The third thing, which is absolutely dreadful, is this dynamic alignment or level playing field, as they call it. The level playing field. It's not so much dynamic alignment for the UK, but Great Britain. But the treaty requires us to maintain a level playing field in certain areas in terms of environment, in terms of social policy and employment policy, and so on, so that we're not allowed to do anything which gives us a competitive advantage over the EU, even if the EU's policies are just ridiculously destructive. And of course, one of them that is this whole net zero nonsense. They are totally signed up to net zero, stopping using carbon or fossil fuels, reducing carbon dioxide emissions to zero, and diverting away from using oil, coal, gas and nuclear power to using wind and solar, which is completely ridiculous. But because we signed this TCA, we are required to have a level playing field in energy, which means that this treaty requires us to also maintain net zero energy policy and to change our energy power generation to wind and solar over the next decades when they want to bring in this big Energiewende, as they call it in German, the energy change. Completely ridiculous. It's the wrong thing for our country. We have an abundance of oil, coal, natural gas, which we can use for generating energy. But the European Union, of course, doesn't want us to use our own resources because that would mean that we're competitive and we can become prosperous and self-sufficient. Oh dear, they don't want that, but that's the right thing for the future. But this agreement that the fake Conservative Boris Johnson signed requires us to pursue net zero and therefore not to develop our own energy resources. So we need to come out of this TCA, Trade and Cooperation Agreement. Trade, fine, but this kind of cooperation where we say we are not going to develop our own industry, even if it's good for us, because that's cooperating with the EU, is absolute nonsense. Who on earth would make an agreement like this unless you either are a complete idiot or you deliberately want to run down your own country? So what we need to do is to fix the things, to fix the issues. We need to leave the TCA in full. Yes, we need to trigger the article in there, and there is one in there that says you can give 12 months notice to leave the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. And that's what we need to do. And then we will be out of it. We will get our fishing waters back. We will get Northern Ireland back. The protocol, the Northern Ireland Protocol, will automatically fall because we're leaving the whole thing. And then we will be out of this chains of net zero which are around us, and the chains of being perpetually required to maintain a level playing field with the EU on areas of environment, employment, social issues and all these other things, which is not right. We should be allowed to make our own policies on energy, employment and environment and culture, not to be beholden to whatever's going on in the European Union. They can do what they like, we can do what we like. But the agreement signed doesn't allow us to do that. It keeps us chained to what is going on in the EU, which is wrong. So the Heritage Party, as you probably know, if you watched my last video, has just rewritten or updated our manifesto, if you like. And so in our section now on national sovereignty, we do have this new policy, which is what we need, which is radical, is to leave the UK-EU Trade and Cooperation Agreement entirely. We can keep all of the basic things, which mean, you can cooperate on databases and on air traffic and these kind of things. I mean, you can just agree those things again just like that, as long as they are not being difficult. But that would hurt the EU if they didn't do that. They would be, cutting their nose off to spite their face. And then, the big thing is we will be free from those things, but we can offer a simple free trade agreement where we say we trade in goods and services, tariff-free, but we're not going to give up our fishing waters. We're not going to give up Northern Ireland. There will be a customs border within the island of Ireland, at the border of Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, not down the middle of the Irish Sea. Northern Ireland will not stay in the single market or the customs union, and we will not commit to level playing fields which tie up the government's hands on making our own policies in energy, environment, culture, and other things that they want to tie our hands in. We will be free from those things, but we're happy to trade tariff-free as we have done. And that's all that's necessary. It's very simple. It's very fair. That's what should have been done 3 years ago, but wasn't. And that's why Brexit has not worked, because we haven't really got Brexit. We've got some kind of half Brexit, but we haven't fully left the European Union in entirety, which is what we should have done. And that's the original language of what people were campaigning for, is for the whole nation to leave fully and properly. And we need to get back to that place where we get rid of this dreadful TCA, go back to the drawing board, which will be quite easy, and get a better deal. The only way we can get that is to scrap the one we got, maybe take a year or two of them huffing and puffing, but so what? They can huff and puff. I don't care. And then we can make a proper trade deal. Or if they don't want to, we can go to WTO rules. No problem, no biggie, no big deal. Everyone will survive, and we will be free and fully independent with all those areas that we still have our hands tied. That's what we need to do. And it's good to think about these things 3 years on. You're not going to get that with the fake Conservatives or Labour or Lib Dems or Greens, because either they're stealthily making moves to take us back into the EU, or they're openly saying they want to go back into the EU. It's only the Heritage Party that is going to have the boldness to do what needs to be done to actually get a proper Brexit that we never had in the first place.